It is a well-known psychological phenomenon that wherever you set that bar, and as long as you're communicating them clearly and concisely, they will rise to the challenge. And then pair that with the high support or the warm and fuzzies. And that's how we build adaptable youth.
Welcome to Work Unscripted. I'm your host, Marlo Lyons. I'm here to toss aside the corporate scripts for unfiltered truths. We are tackling real work challenges with no sugarcoating, providing you with the strategies to thrive and find fulfillment in your career. It's time to turn the page. It's time to be unscripted. Today's episode is one you don't want to miss, especially if you're a parent, a manager, or a Gen Z professional entering the workforce. Why? Companies say they've let Gen Z employees go within months of hiring, citing poor communication, lack of initiative, and struggles adapting to corporate life. But is Gen Z really failing, or are we failing them? To answer that, I'm joined by Dr. Andrea Mata, a clinical psychologist and speaker who's been sounding the alarm on what she calls a mental health tsunami. We dig into the role of modern parenting trends, how managers can balance empathy with accountability, and most importantly, how to help Gen Z rise to the challenge while protecting their mental health. Dr. Andrea Mata, welcome to Work Unscripted.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on it.
So excited to have you here. So this is going to be a very robust conversation for parents, managers, and Gen Z, the latest generation to enter the workforce. Not to be an alarmist, but I've read that you have said that we are on the cusp of a mental health tsunami with Gen Z, and this is going to impact the workplace. So I want to know what you're seeing right off the bat.
So I think what we're seeing is a study recently came out that reported 60% of businesses have fired a Gen Z employee within a few months of hiring them because they lack initiative, motivation, they don't know how to dress appropriately, behave appropriately, and they have poor communication skills. And I wish this was just like a study that we could just kind of like put off to the side and be like, oh, that's just a study. But like I'm seeing it in real life in my therapy office. I had a client a few years ago that he came to me and he had been, heavily recruited out of college. And then he went to a big city to this big, financial firm, and he went through onboarding. And then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks of being onboarded for the company, he had a complete mental health breakdown and had to take 3 months off to get like his mental stability back. And I remember him coming to me and being like, I'm sleeping like 2 hours a night. And I was like, that's problematic. And he's like, I was listening to an Andr Huberman podcast and he was telling me how to get my sleep back. And I was like, whoa, bro. Like you're like only getting 2 hours of sleep a night. Like you're down here, you're not functioning. Huberman's all about like optimization. Like we need to get you functioning and then we can like listen to Huberman to get you like optimized sleep. But it took us 3 months of him seeing me multiple times a week to kind of get his mental health back on like steady footing.
What is happening? Like how is starting a job or working in a corporate environment impacting Gen Z's mental health? I mean, you go to work, you do your job, you go home.
Yeah, so the two main environments that are the Gen Zs have been raised in, parenting and schools, have not built adaptable employers or employees. So like a lot of the time we see gentle parenting has been a thing. So like not using rewards and punishments, treating them like as if they are like on the same level or they're our partner. So they're giving them lots of decision-making power before they have the skills and the abilities and the knowledge to make wise decisions. And then the other one is like focusing in on their feelings. So I think with gentle parenting, pushing these three guidelines, it has built our our Gen Z adults to not be able and under-equipped to go into the workforce. And then the schools are the same thing. So we're seeing a lot more what's called trauma-informed education. And one of the big premises of this kind of education, at least in my experience, is that we tell our kids, we tell our students that they are broken and that they're all traumatized. And the truth is, like, very little of them or few of them are actually traumatized, and none of them are broken. Like, you can always develop new skills, you can always better yourself. And so I think they're coming from these two environments, and then college is the same way. And then when they get into the workforce, it's like the older generations don't know what to do with them, because they're like, no, you just, like you kind of said, Marlo, like, you go to work and you do the job and like then you go home. But like, they're not used to that.
So I feel like you're saying that like managers need to baby Gen Z, but at the same time don't baby Gen Z, but offer support. So where is this line between empathy and accountability?
Yeah. So a lot of the time, what I will encourage managers to do, and it's the same techniques that I tell parents to do. You want to set high expectations within the context of the warm and fuzzies. Now, in the corporate world, I don't use warm and fuzzies. I use high support. So if you are a manager and you have Gen Z employees coming in, what you want to do is set clear, high expectations for them. You want to communicate what those are. You want to really adapt kind of how you've done your evaluation process, like move away from 1 year evaluations and really go into like 12-week evaluations, so that they're getting constant feedback, and then you're not waiting a whole year. And then it gets rid of like the whole like urgency piece, or the lack of urgency, where like they're like, oh, I have a whole year to improve. And it's like, no, you have 12 weeks to meet this goal. And then the other piece is like establish this high support and like build those relationships with the Gen Z employees. And that's how we're going to equip them. That's how we're going to build them up, so that our productivities are good, that our results are good, that we are maintaining retention. And because who wants to lose employees months after we hire them? Like, that's not good for anybody.
But you have to be careful on that 12-week thing, right? Because they could have that urgency of, hey, I need to work and improve in those 12 weeks. But that also creates an additional level of stress and anxiety and maybe depression or mental health issues, no?
No, because like when I was a college professor, like our semesters were 15 weeks long, right? And so not very far off from that 12 weeks. And so what I would do a lot of the time is I would have shorter assignments throughout the semester where they had kind of deadlines, because I noticed like if I just gave them like one big term paper at the end of the year, none of them started working on it until like the night before. And then they turned in not great writing or research, and it was plagiarized and all of the things. And now there's AI, so they can just shoot it into AI and they think we're not going to like notice. But I think is it going to create anxiety? Yes. But at the same time, I think they're going to get used to it, because it's going to be the goals that you're coming up with in those 12 weeks are going to be far more manageable. They're going to be bite-sized. They're going to be concise. They're going to know exactly what you want them to do, because you're setting up behavioral expectations. And then you're kind of pairing that with that support, that high support. You're giving them feedback. You're helping them. You're like, okay, you don't have this skill. How can we help you get this skill so that you can succeed and thrive in this job that we have you in?
If I'm a manager and I've done everything right, say I've done absolutely everything that you said, and I've given them all the support in the world, and they're still taking medical leave, they're still complaining of burnout, they're still talking about their emotional struggles. You know, managers can't just say, do you have a mental health issue? Do we need to talk, right? They can't really dig into their mental health issues necessarily. So how do I know whether an employee is simply struggling with the challenge that I've put before them, or they have a true mental health issue that is valid for them taking all this time off or trying to regulate themselves like the employee did that you talked about?
Yeah, so I think it really comes down to having those good relationships so that they do feel comfortable. Like I know have heard of another Gen Z adult who has a good paying job, has been at the job for a year, but doesn't like their manager, doesn't get along with their manager, doesn't feel seen, doesn't feel valued. And so this Gen Z employee was like, you know what? I'm just going to go on medical leave for 3 months. And from what I know of this person, like they don't have a medical condition, they don't have a psychological disorder. So I don't know who they went to kind of get this medical leave, but like HR can't ask. But the company awarded this person 3 months off. And then the person is like going around and like starting their own business in that 3 months. And I'm just like, what is going on? And it could have all been prevented had that Gen Z employee felt validated, felt seen by their managers, but it wasn't a good fit. Like it's not the manager's fault. It wasn't the Gen Z employer's fault. It's just the terrible interaction between the two. But it could have been avoided had that Gen Z employee felt like they could express that what their, complications are, what their issues were, because then they could have just transferred them over to a different team possibly.
Okay, I'm going to say what every single manager out there is thinking right now. They are saying, why can't these kids just toughen up? Right? Every manager is saying that.
I get it, but here's the thing. It's not their fault. Like they have been raised for 22 years in these 3 environments, from their homes to high school, like all through K through 12, through college, where they have been coddled. It is not their fault. So yes, we can like lay on the floor and like be like sadness inside out and just be like, wow. Or we can be like anger and be like, what the heck? Like, wow. Or we can be like, okay, we're going to do something about it. And I did in one of my talks, I talk about hope. And I created this inside out character, and she's very, very adorable. And she's hope, and like we can give hope. And there's these other strategies that we can do. You can pull in, you can bring in workshop facilitators who are like Gen Z mental health experts, and they can do workshops and they can help you with onboarding. And so there's other things to do because it really isn't their fault. We just need to learn to build them up and give them the skills that they have yet to develop.
I feel like, though, we're asking leaders to parent Gen Z. Like we're asking them to do what the parents didn't do and teach them phone etiquette and conflict resolution and how to dress properly in a normal situation, or financial literacy, like basics.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're doing?
Yes, because a lot of the time they don't have these life skills and they haven't learned it. And it's, again, like it can be so frustrating, but at the same time, like, what are you going to do? Like, I know my husband was watching this YouTube video, and it's actually one of my previous colleagues, Jake Zwig. And he was talking about, cause he does, reviews of like people, like military training, like basic training kind of stuff. And he was talking about the 2 extremes of Gen Z that we see. We have the one that we're kind of talking about, the one that they aren't going to do like anything, or they're going to, they're not going to do anything, where they're just like, I don't know what to tell you, like, I'm broken or whatever. But then you have the other ones that are super, super high achieving, and you're like, these guys are great. But we're seeing these extremes. And so, but at the same time, like, yes, we want to like honor the really, really good ones, but then we also need to kind of help the other ones along, because what are our other choices? Like, we're just going to skip a whole generation and hope that like the betas are better. Like, I don't know if betas are going to be better.
I feel like it's the same thing that happened with the millennials, right? Same thing. Everybody said they were lazy, or they were this, or they were that. And they're all the ones that are leaders today. So, I mean, I feel like every generation, there's complaints about that generation. But I think what you're saying is stop focusing on complaining and figure out what they need and then help them with what they need. But are we still enabling them? If we are helping them, like, I feel like then we're enabling them exactly what their parents did, right? Like, we're not helping them actually get to where they need to be. Or is that what you're saying? Like, don't enable them, but coach them through that.
Correct. So I don't think we want to enable them. It was funny. I was just working on my speaker website earlier today, and my brand manager used the word empower. Like, we want to empower Gen Z. And I hate the word empower. And like, I did like and I did a thesaurus search of like, I'm like, I need a different word other than empower. And I figured out the reason why I hate empower, because the definition of empower is enable. And one of the synonyms of empower is entitle. And we don't want to enable Gen Zs, and we don't want them to make further entitlement, but we want to equip them. We want to train them. We want to coach them on the skills that they need to be successful in these environments.
But how do you balance that with the realities of business goals and deliverables and needing to move fast? How do you balance the two?
I think a lot of the time we focus on like, we need to get this done right now. And the same thing happens to parents, right? Like, oh, we got to get out the door like right now. Oh, the kid's tying their shoe. Crap, it's going to take them significantly longer to tie their shoe, where I can just like bend down and tie their shoe and then we're out the door, right? But then what are you actually, like, I've done it before. I'm guilty as well.
Guilt is charged.
But like, what do we actually get out of that? And like, are we in that much of a hurry? And are those like timelines that we like perceive are like crushing down on us? Are they actual legitimate timelines? Or can we take a little bit of time and like coach them and give them that time to develop those skills? Because here's what happens. When we give them the time and we give them the coaching to learn those skills, then we can step back because they have those skills, and then they can do those tasks independently and autonomously, whereas we don't have to be over their shoulder all of the time.
And that's what you're asking leaders to do, coach.
Coach.
Just coach them into what they need to do. But I also feel like, let's flip the switch here for a second. Like, I feel like Gen Z also has to have this mindset shift. Like, I feel like it's not all on the managers at this point. Like, they have to realize that when they're making this transition from school to corporate, this is a big transition, and they need to ask for what they need. They need to understand what they need.
Yes, absolutely. And so like, that's why I'm starting to work with colleges, like College of Business especially, to go in and do like skills training, like corporate skills training for these college students, so that when they're in college, they're learning those skills that they're going to need in the workplace, like what we would consider more like soft skills, but like what I call like adaptability skills. And so that when you are, going on the job market and you're going into a workplace, you don't have like, these managers aren't having these issues, because we're giving the Gen Zs, when they're in college, more like training and coaching and those kind of things. Because you're right, like it's not a one-sided fix. Like, we need to teach the managers and the leaders how to like, okay, this is what it's like, and this is what we need. They need high expectations within the context of high support. And then also the Gen Z employees need to be, seeking out like their own development and learning those skills. And then by doing kind of attacking the problem from both sides, that's where we're going to see the most success.
If I'm Gen Z and I'm looking for that first or second job, right? And I have expectations that my emotional and my social needs will all be met, and they're not being met at work, what do I do?
Then, the thing is, it's like, you can't expect, you can talk to HR. This may probably the first one, and see whether or not there's like employee assisted programs where you can like talk to, a mental health provider on the company's dime. They usually give, I don't know, it varies, like 3 to 6 like sessions with the employee assisted mental health provider. You could seek out a therapist on your own. You could seek out coaching on your own. Those are all viable, options, or good options to kind of seek out for those Gen Z employees.
So you're saying don't rely on your manager for your emotional, social support needs. Rely on your manager for the skills needs.
Correct. And then, yeah, because like a lot of the time, I remember I was talking to, what is she? She's Gen X. So she's a supervisor and she has a Gen Z employee. And her and I were meeting because she was like the supervisor was struggling. And she's like, she just wants to talk about her emotions all of the time. And I'm like, we need to like have a conversation about like how Gen Xers like don't like to talk about their emotions and they don't want to talk about their personal life. They just want to focus on work. And then like you have the Gen Z coming in and being like, my emotions, like this is what I did. And that's how they're connecting. But like we need to, kind of figure out what's the culture that we want to cultivate in the workplace. Like what is kind of like the norm.
Are there things that Gen Z can do like on a daily basis to try to build this grit and resilience that you're telling me that many of them don't have?
So my number one suggestion for Gen Zs to kind of build more grit is like this growth mindset piece. So like they have to develop what's called a growth mindset. And so developing a growth mindset is usually like, I will tell them like, okay, at the beginning of every work day, what I want you to do is take 5 minutes and write down like, what are your top 3 goals for today? Or like even what's your top 1 goal for that day? What are you working on for that day? Like what skill set are you working on? And then at the end of the workday, take 5 minutes. It doesn't take much longer than that. And actually write out, okay, this was my goal for today. I wanted to be better with, staying on task. Maybe that was the goal for today. Okay, I'm staying on task. Like at the end of the day, you're then reflecting, how well did you stay on task? What did you learn? And how can you improve on staying on task for the next day? Like what did you do well? What did you not do so well? And what can you improve on for the next day? Like, oh, I need to like turn off my cell phone, or I need to like put my cell phone away because I kept like pulling it up like every 20 minutes or something like that because I was getting distracted. And I teach all of my, coach high school football. And this is a skill that I teach them. I give them each a notebook and I'm like, okay, every single practice, this is what I want you to be doing. Like, what's the one thing you're working on? Spend 5 minutes afterwards. And then it gets a little frustrating. Believe me, managers, I get it. Because I remember the one day I did this for one of my players who's now at a Division I football program. And he's like, Dr. Mata, this really works. And I was like, I know. I'm like, that's awesome that you did it. Thank you so much. And I was like, well, did you continue doing it? No. Keep doing it day after day after day. Like you don't, again, kind of going back to the thing where you think you don't have time, you do have time. You have 5 minutes in the morning. You have 5 minutes in the evening. Like just set that time aside so that you can learn this skill of grit.
What does that do? Like writing this down, what I did well that day, what I didn't do well, or how I'm going to try to approach it tomorrow. Like how does that change? How does that build grit? Like what does that do for you?
So I think it makes you become much more self-reflective. And it makes you look at like, okay, what are the things that you're doing on a daily basis? What do you want to be focusing in on? And it helps you problem solve. It helps you become more adaptable. Like, okay, what are the skills that I'm lacking? Like, okay, I'm trying to focus on this other skill, but all these other skills are coming into play and I don't have those skills. So I need to develop those skills. So I think it becomes, you're much more aware and you're reflecting and you're becoming much more adaptable and a better problem solver.
I feel like a lot of this fragileness. Can I even call it fragileness? Are they fragile? Are they snowflakes, Gen Z?
You can probably call, like some people will probably take offense to that, but like I can support it. I can get behind it.
I feel like a lot of this can be avoided with different parenting. And I am the parent of 2 Gen Z teens right now. Mm-hmm. They're at the very bottom of Gen Z, right? They're going to be probably the end before Gen Alpha starts.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wonder, and I'm wondering if parents are wondering, what am I doing wrong? Like, what am I doing that's going to sabotage my kids in the workplace in the future? What should I stop doing like today?
Mm-hmm. I think the big things are the same thing like I was talking to the managers about. It's like setting those high expectations within the context of the warm and fuzzies. So like not bailing your kids out, not like bulldozing over all the obstacles, like making them walk to school in the rain. They're not witches. They're not going to melt. And like really kind of, if they join an extracurricular activity, like they may not like it, but like require them, make the expectation that they have to stay in that extracurricular activity, minus like abuse from like the leaders or whatever it is, but they have to finish out that like season or that session, whatever it is, and really kind of help them develop those adaptability skills, like so that they can go into any environment and they can figure out, they can assess like, okay, what's going on? What do I need to in order to succeed? And then they have those skills that are going to propel them forward and be successes.
So my kids are neurodivergent, right? I have an ADHD kid and a high functioning autism ADHD kid. And so I kind of wonder, are you talking about kids that are neurodivergent that aren't adjusting to the workplace? Or are you talking about all Gen Z that are
all Gen Z
to the workplace?
They're
really?
not. So, I mean, not all Gen Z. Like I said before, like there's certain Gen Z that are like high functioning, like they are awesome, like they are the rock stars. But yeah, I think it goes across the board, like whether or not they're on the spectrum, whether or not they have ADHD, or whether or not they're neurotypical.
So what are you seeing? So I remember when we were talking, you were telling me that a lot of the stories that you see and a lot of the situations you see are not neurodivergent. They are neurotypical. So
Yeah.
what are you seeing parents do? Tell me a story about what is something a parent has done and how it has impacted their kid and their kid's success in a negative way that the parent never would have guessed.
Yeah, so I remember I was recently told a story about how this high schooler they were in the band, right? And they had forgotten their phone charger, and they had a relatively long bus ride. And they didn't have a phone charger. So instead of like problem solving it, they texted their mom and they're like, "Hey, I don't have my phone charger and I'm about to lose battery. Like my phone's about to die and it's not going to last throughout the rest of the event by the time I get back." And instead of like the mom telling the teenager, like, problem solve it, like figure out like what are the options, what can you do, what are the possible solutions, okay, let's rate them on like, are they going to fix the problem, are they going to cause more issues? The mom literally called the band director and wanted the band director to stop the bus and reorganize everyone on the bus. I don't know why. This didn't make any sense to me, but this is the story that they told me. They wanted to reorganize everyone on the bus so that their child, because there was only so many outlets or whatever, and so that the child wasn't by like an outlet. That's what it was. And so they wanted to reorganize everyone on the bus so that their teenager could be sitting by a charger.
And use the charger or borrow somebody's charge cord or whatever. Oh my gosh.
Correct. Yeah. Literally wanted them to stop the bus and rearrange everybody.
So this also goes to conflict. I will be the first one to admit that I have called another parent when my kid is having a conflict with their kid. And doesn't mean that any kid is wrong or any kid is right. It's just I've picked up the phone because I see my kid is struggling, like really struggling, and struggling with mental health issues because of the conflict.
Yeah.
That was the wrong thing to do, right? Like I should have coached my kid, and I did coach my kid, but I should have not picked up the phone with the other parent necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, because like really sitting down with your teen and being like, okay, let's assess the situation. Like, what is going on? Okay, now let's list out all of the possible problems, or what are all the possible solutions. Let's figure out, okay, what are the pros of each one? What are the cons of each one? Okay, which one should we try first? Okay, does my child need any skills to like execute this strategy well? And then coach them up that way and give them the confidence, or like not give them the confidence, but create an environment where they can develop that confidence, where they can handle this conflict all on their own.
This is really interesting because I am a coach, but we try not to coach our kids, right? But yet we're supposed to coach our kids. And so this is super interesting to me because I'm realizing that every time I do something for them, even though I think I'm being helpful or I'm trying to get us out the door or whatever it is I'm doing, I'm actually taking away a little of their confidence, their independence, their ability 10 years from now to be successful in the workplace.
Yes, you are robbing, I usually will say, like, you are robbing them of that struggle, which doesn't seem like an issue right now, but come like 10 years down the road, it will be.
And then when they get into the workplace, they're going to be calling me on how to deal with a conflict of somebody they don't like at work or their boss or those types of things. Or they're going to call in sick, basically, when they can't get with.
Yes, because, oh my goodness, this is a great story. So I have another client, she's mid-20s, and her boss looked at her one day and was like, hey, like you did this, you had this mistake on this report. And my client was so devastated that her boss told her she made a mistake, not like a massive mistake, not like $1 million like mistake, but like a fixable mistake, like a little mistake, like, hey, you did this wrong. Don't do it on the next report, just for your information. Like fix it now and then move on. My client took the next day off because of a mental health issue. And she's like, I needed a mental health day. And I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, you don't need a mental health day just because you made a mistake. Like we need to process that you made a mistake and learn from the mistake.
Wow. I feel like we're at a crossroads here where half of Gen Z is already in the workforce. The other half is still being raised. So it's like right now, I have to change how I parent right now if I want to make an impact on my kids that'll be entering the workforce in about 10 years.
Yep.
And other parents need to make a change right now because Gen X are going to be, at the senior leadership levels at that point, right? Millennials are definitely going to be their managers. They're managers now, right?
Yeah.
So I then realize they're not going to put up with this. They're not going to be able to know how to put up with this. Like, how do we bring everybody together to understand this is what's happened? How do we get parents to change how they parent? There's a lot of questions in this one.
Yeah.
How do we like just get everybody talking about this without blame, right? Without blame of parents, you stink, and kids, you stink. I'm not going to hire you. Like, how do we raise that? Or maybe this podcast is raising that conversation.
I think that's the first step because I think you said it before, Marlo, like I don't think corporations and managers realize what is going on because they don't understand that parenting piece. They don't know what's going on in the schools and they don't know how those two in the colleges, what those three environments, how they're going to impact the workplace. But it's funny because whenever I deliver a talk on this and I start talking about gentle parenting and schools and its impact on the workplace, you just see like everyone in the room nodding their heads and being like, oh, that's what's going on. And I'm like, yes. So like, I think people know that there's something going on, but they don't understand it. And so I think having these conversations of like, okay, where is this actually coming from? Why is this happening? It's not that they're broken or they're damaged or anything like that. It's just how they're coming from, the environments that they're coming from. And then, okay, now we need to, teach them skills and we need to set high expectations and with high support. And then the parents need to be coming in and, okay, we need to be changing how we're parenting, get rid of gentle parenting. We want to promote authoritative parenting. So high expectations within the context of the warm and fuzzies. And then schools, we want to be attending school board meetings and making sure that we're keeping our children and our teens accountable in the schools because like teachers, and this is something we haven't even talked about, is that teachers are leaving the profession in such high rates because like they're being disrespected. They have no power because they're stuck between administration and like parents, and the kids are getting away with like everything that like I would never even remotely think that students should be getting away with.
Wow. So it's going to take a joint effort. So if I'm a manager in an office today and I have a Gen Z employee that I had high hopes for, and that employee is failing in some way, shape, or form, or calling in sick constantly, or coming in late, or leaving early, or wearing a low-cut shirt that they shouldn't be wearing, you're telling me overall, be patient, set the expectations very clearly, and support them. And what does support look like exactly? That's coaching, right?
Yes, it's coaching that's like making them feel seen. It's building those relationships with them.
What does that mean, making them feel seen?
I think okay, so I talk about like the 4 A's and I always forget one of them. So hopefully I can make all 4. Figuring out a lot of the time individuals that regardless of what generation they come from, they want to feel appreciated. They want to feel acknowledged. They want to feel approval, and they want to feel acceptance. There we go. I got all 4. So appreciation, acceptance, approval, acknowledgement. We all want those 4 A's. And so if you can figure out which of those 4 A's is the most important for your employee, and then figure out practical ways to make them feel that, it's going to be so amazing in regards to your relationship. I remember I was working with a teacher, and the teacher is like a high performing teacher, but he was getting frustrated with his school because his AP students typically score like the highest on AP. And during this the beginning of the school year, the principal was acknowledging we have all these high AP scores, even though he had the highest. No one acknowledged him. No one acknowledged that his students had the highest AP test scores. And he just looked at me and I was like, you don't feel acknowledged. And he strongly desires acknowledgement. And so all they had to do was hey, John, you are rocking it. Your students are scoring on average 4.1 on their AP scores. That is absolutely amazing. And that would have brought him back in. It would have made him feel like he belonged and he was appreciated and acknowledged, and he wouldn't be leaving the school like he is now.
It's amazing how much acknowledgement matters for everybody, not just Gen Z. Simple acknowledgement of you worked really hard on that.
Yeah.
I saw how late you worked. I saw you put a lot of effort into that.
Yep.
How important that is just across the board.
Yeah. And bringing it doesn't have to be it can also be fun and humorous. I remember when I used to when I was a college professor, I had my own research lab, and I typically had somewhere between 4 and 6 undergraduates and graduate research assistants with me. And every single semester, at the end of the semester, we would do a lab party, and I would take them out to the same bar. And if they wanted drinks and they were old enough, they would buy their own drinks, but I would buy appetizers for the whole group. Everyone would order an appetizer, and then we would just share it. It would be such a fun time. And one of the things I would do during those lab meetings is I would create, and I mean, this is the participation trophy, reward kind of thing, generation. And I would create an award, a silly, goofy award for each of the people in my lab, that it was something specific to them. It was either something funny about their personality, something that happened to them across the semester. And so I'd come up with these funny titles, and I would print it off and have a little blurb about it. And everyone felt seen, everyone felt heard, everyone laughed. And a lot of the time they would go home and put it on their refrigerator, and then they would take a picture of it on the refrigerator, and it's a made up award. It took me maybe an hour every semester to do this, but they felt completely seen and appreciated and acknowledged for the work that they did throughout the semester.
I will say there are some in the camp of that's why you get paid. That's why you get paid. That's your acknowledgement for doing a good job. That's why you get paid. But it's just not enough.
It's not enough. And it doesn't, the other thing is, what does it cost you to acknowledge someone? As you're walking by their cubicle, or as you're walking by their desk or their office, you just stop in for 10 seconds and say, hey, Julie, you did a wonderful job on the presentation yesterday. Like, thank you so much for putting all that time and effort in. It doesn't take very long, but then you're going to have an employee who's going to stay with you so much longer, and you're not going to have to like go into hiring someone else, which is going to cost you a lot of money. And I'm going to cough.
Dr. Mata, this has been super interesting. If you had one final piece of advice for parents, for educators in colleges, for managers, what would that advice be?
It is my number one advice. Set the high expectations high. They will rise to it. It is a well-known psychological phenomenon that wherever you set that bar, and as long as you're communicating them clearly and concisely, they will rise to the challenge. And then pair that with the high support or the warm and fuzzies. And that's how we build adaptable youth.
Perfect. So how can people find you? You are still obviously working with students and Gen Z and helping them adapt. How can people find you?
So I have a new speaker website going up. It is Dr. So Dre, Dre, Mata, Mata.com. So drdremata.com. You can find me there. I am extremely active on LinkedIn, and I have a YouTube channel. And you could always buy my book, which is back there.
There you go. And the name of the book is?
The #2 parenting book, Practical Tips for the Pooped Out Parent. It's all about practical tips in the time it takes you to poop, a mom poop, not a dad poop. And it's available on Amazon.
And I read the book. And yes, it is within a mom poop, without a doubt. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And hopefully this helps some managers out here there who may be struggling with Gen Z, and hopefully maybe help some Gen Z figure out how they need to adapt to the workplace. Thanks for listening to Work Unscripted. If today's episode resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a colleague, a friend, or even your team. And if you want more conversations like this, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we can build workplaces that set high expectations with high support and help the next generation truly thrive. Until next time, stay unscripted. Work Unscripted is produced and edited in partnership with the team at Palm Tree Podco and 21 Digby. The content for this week's episode was created by me, Marlo Lyons.